Stevie Ray Vaughan, Robben Ford. Two masters of blues playing, both with very different approaches to soloing. I'm not making this video to pit them against each other or anything like that. I just got back from teaching my first ever in-person workshop in Surrey with guitar breaks, and the theme was Stevie Ray Vaughan, Hendrix and Robben Ford. So I spent 4 days teaching a group of guitarists about various aspects of their playing styles, and at one point the topic of the differences between Robben and Stevie's approaches to a blues shuffle, that topic came up, and so I thought that this would make for an interesting video to maybe open your eyes and ears to new ways of thinking about your blues solos. And before we get into it, I want to let you know that all of the crispy blues tones that I'm getting with my Strat today, they're courtesy of the Tone King Imperial Mark II plugin by Neuro DSP, who are the sponsor of today's video. You can download my presets and a trial of the plugin for free via the links in the description box. So if we're talking about a Pride and Joy style shuffle in the key of E, Stevie Ray Vaughan had this very visceral, primal and ferocious approach to his solos, where he would just bulldoze his way through open string licks laden with hammer-ons and pull-offs to notes like the flat 5 in the blues scale and the 9 and flat 9 on the high E strings, licks that might have sounded like this, for example. Members of bulletproofguitarplayer.com have instant access to the tab files for everything played in this video, including those intro solos. Sign up today via the link in the description box. Now, I want to make it clear that when I say bulldoze, I mean that in the best way possible. Very few guitar players can authentically play with as much ferocity as Stevie Ray Vaughan and keep it going for an entire solo convincingly. His approach also rarely left breathing space in the solo. He would play notes almost constantly throughout. And remember, I'm referring to tracks like Pride and Joy, Scuttlebutting, Testify, Mary Had a Little Lamb, for example, not songs like Lenny or Riviera Paradise, where his dynamics were a lot more varied. You know, on those songs he'd go from a whisper to a scream in an instant, and also leave lots of space in between the licks. But on blues songs like the ones that I just mentioned, it was usually the more aggressive, constant note approach. Robben Ford, on the other hand, will often open a shuffle solo with a short phrase, a statement. He'll play it, put it out there, stop, pause, let it breathe, and then come back with a rebuttal and build the momentum of the solo gradually with a series of cleverly linked phrases that might reference each other as the solo progresses. For example, he might open with something like this. And then he would pause, let the listener absorb that, and then he would come back with something to answer that opening phrase. Dynamically, with Robben Ford, it's like each note is treated with a great deal of care. In a long string of notes, certain ones will be accented and others will be played more softly or be picked closer to the fretboard or closer to the bridge for a different timbral effect. Harmonically, it's no secret that he likes to approach some of the transitions between the chords with notes that create tension over the initial chord, which is then released when he resolves to a chord tone of the next chord. The half-whole diminished scale is one tool that he'll use to achieve this effect, and I have lessons about that on my channel if you're interested in learning more about licks that sound like this. He'll also make great efforts to target the thirds of the 1, 4 and 5 chords when they appear, and he'll often approach them chromatically with passing notes that aren't derived from any particular scale but just sound good. Talking about the turnaround specifically, Robben would play lines that outline the chord tones of the 5, 4 and 1 chords, whereas Stevie would maybe play a lick that led him into a voicing for the 5 chord, which he would then arpeggiate, and then he'd maybe go back to playing licks over the 4 and the 1 chords in the turnaround. So let's take a listen to some examples over a backing track for better context. Here's an SRV inspired lick going from the 1 to the 4 and then back to the 1 chord. And And here's a Robben Ford inspired approach to those same chord changes. I want to show you guys more examples of their approaches, but this time over the turnaround in the 12-bar blues progression. Before I do that though, let's take a minute to talk about Neural DSP, who are sponsoring today's lesson. I've been using their Tone King Imperial Mark II plugin for all of my blues lessons recently because it is the perfect plugin for blues players like you and I. A lot of players that I know have been hesitant to get into the plugin world for a while because all they were seeing were products made for the modern metal crowd. And I could definitely relate to that myself. There were several Neural plugins that you could get great blues sounds out of, but this one is definitely tailor-made to make blues players feel welcomed into the plugin world. I mean, the Tone King Imperial amp itself, that's a 2-channel boutique combo amp designed to emulate the tones of old Fender Tweed amps. On the amp, you'll actually find built-in spring reverb, which sounds great. In the pre-effects section, you've got a wah pedal, a compressor, and 2 overdrives to give yourself different amounts of saturation and clarity for a solo boost. It's also got a post-effects section where you'll find chorus, delay, and reverb. There are multiple microphone emulations to choose from. You can have up to 2 mics on the cab at the same time and change the mic position on the cab with ease. And you can even add in room mics for added ambience. You can even load in your own IRs, and there's also a graphic EQ if you really want to fine-tune your tone for recording. There's also a couple of very practical tools like an onboard tuner and a really great metronome for practicing with. I've got 2 free presets for you to try out today via the links in the description box. The first is my SRV Tweed preset, which sounds like this. The other is my Ford lead preset, which sounds like this. To try those sounds out with your own guitars at home, go to the description box beneath the video, download the free trial of the plugin using my link, then download my preset files and open the plugin, just drag and drop the XML files onto it and they should load up in the plugin and you'll be good to go. Huge thanks to Neural for their continued support of the channel. This really helps to keep the show going here, and their products really do make my working life, my workflow in general, so much easier. Let's get back to the lesson now. Now here's a Stevie Ray Vaughan inspired lick played over the turnaround in a 12-bar blues. Notice how over the 5 chord I'm literally playing a voicing of a dominant 7th chord and then going back to some blues scale based licks over the 4 and 5 chords. And here's a Robben Ford inspired idea over those same changes. Notice how it's more a case of outlining the chord tones with the notes as opposed to playing any actual chords. So to conclude, what can we take from this analysis of the Robben Ford shuffle approach versus the same of Stevie Ray Vaughan? Well, the main thing is just that it goes to show there is so much variation in how you can approach the same set of chords with the same rhythmic feel. From SRV, you can take inspiration from his ferocious approach and try to channel that in the moment on stage when you are reaching those climactic points in your solos where it really calls for that intensity. And with Robben Ford, you can really learn a lot about call and response from the way that he starts his solos with these short statements, then pauses for breath, and then comes back with a rebuttal. What did I miss out in this video, or what are the similarities between these two players, if you can think of any? Let me know by leaving a comment. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this. If you like this video, please literally take a second, go and press the like button and subscribe for more, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. Cheers, guys.